The wormhole billiard ball paradox. The following is a solution that addresses all the points raised by Professor Paul Davies in his piece The Mother of All Paradoxes, as published in the Scientific American Special on Time, Volume 21, Number 1, page 28. The paradox described by Professor Davies considers a scenario of a billiard ball entering a wormhole such that it exits the wormhole both in the temporal past and also at a location such that the billiard ball could impact and deflect itself, preventing it from ever entering the wormhole in the first place. This possibility is considered to be a paradox, and according to Wikipedia, a paradox is a statement that apparently contradicts itself and yet might be true. Most logical paradoxes are known to be invalid arguments, but are still valuable in promoting critical thinking. Wikipedia goes on to say, some paradoxes have revealed errors in definitions assumed to be rigorous. The critical thinking that I believe shows the definition of this apparent paradox to be invalid, and how the situation may be better understood and solvable timelessly, is as follows. First, we consider the ball entering the wormhole and appearing from the exit in the temporal past and aimed at itself. In the time-based view, this would seem to be possible if Einstein's relativity is said to be not only about change, but also about a thing called time, which has a past and a future. Given the standard view of relativity, it seems possible that the ball could exit the wormhole such that it can deflect itself, creating a paradox, which some suggest leads to the need for infinite parallel universes in which all outcomes of all events are possible to avoid such logical clashes of events. Such a call for infinite parallel universes is far-fetched and can be avoided at a stroke if we consider the possibility that perhaps all objects just exist now, no matter how distorted in shape or rates of change. While most people seem to assume otherwise, a careful examination of Einstein's paper on the electrodynamics of moving bodies shows that his workings do not prove the existence of time, but only assume time's existence. Critically, in section 1 of electrodynamics, Einstein outlines time by saying, if, for instance, I say that a train arrives here at 7 o'clock, I mean something like this. The pointing of the small hand of my watch to 7 and the arrival of the train are simultaneous events. In this sentence, Einstein only actually describes the fact that objects, be they locomotives on tracks or rotating hands on dials, can exist and move, and that their locations and motion can be compared. He does not in any way point to a proof that there is a past, or a future, or time, or that different times exist. In fact, he seems only to show that objects can exist and move, while also assuming time exists, and that a rotating hand on a numbered dial in some way shows time's existence. Importantly, this detail gets more and more lost as we seem to habitually conclude that relativity's more complex conclusions backtrack to a proof of time, whereas again they may only show that things can exist, move and change, often at unexpected rates, but always only now, so to speak. That objects might just exist and change, i.e. never creating a temporal past behind them or heading into a temporal future, gives us a radically different and far simpler interpretation of our paradox. Instead of assuming the billiard ball splits into two existences, one in the present and another in the past, we consider that as the ball enters the wormhole, it is just spaghettified, and that this spaghettification or elongation becomes pronounced enough that the front of the billiard ball can exit the wormhole even though its rear is outside the hole. In this way, the front of the billiard ball is able to traverse the wormhole, such that it can exit and hit its own rear. In this way, the front of the ball is free to impact and affect the rear and deflect it in countless simple physical ways, but none that deflect the rest of the ball from its transit through the wormhole, and eliminates the need for esoteric devices such as Professor Hawkins' chronology, protection, conjecture. Remembering, of course, that conjecture is an opinion or conclusion formed on the basis of incomplete information. Critically, we can see how this timeless solution allows even a living being, in this case a conveniently shaped snake, to likewise enter the wormhole and interact with its own body. Considering the possibility that relativity might affect rates of change, though not the flow of a thing called time, even allows us to consider how the snake's living head might interact with its dead tail, timelessly. In this case, the tail of the snake continues to expend the processes we call life, while the head is slowed down in these processes. In this case, the living head could even meet and devour its own decomposing tail, not because one is in the past, affecting the present, but because both are just in the one and only present, changing at different rates. We can note also here that we could pass two snakes through the tunnel in both directions, and the effect would function both ways without confusion, let alone paradox. It is only the blind insistent that Einstein's excellent relativity tells us about space and time, as opposed to space and change, that makes the situation seem complex or impossible. But nowhere in relativity does Einstein's work do more than assume that a changing device, such as a motorized hand on a numbered dial, aka a clock, counts as proof of a past and a future and time. For more information on timelessness, please look at the www.timelessness.co.uk website, or read A Brief History of Timelessness, or watch out for other videos. Thank you for your attention.